So, what did you miss at Jubilee today? Well, the second Sunday of Lent, you missed another opportunity to experience a meditation practice as Leanne led us through another practice for Lent as we focused on being in the moment, being in the now. And it was peaceful and present and much appreciated. You missed today the opportunity to hear about Abraham and Sarah, although before the covenant he was known as Avram and Sarah, who had come to the end of the road, who had done all they were going to do, who had realized the road had ended, Sarah being unable to bear children. And yet they heard that voice saying, "Come, come with me." And although life was good and settled, they followed that voice. Although they had a sense that there was no future for them, after all, Sarah was barren in a culture that valued children to carry on tradition and name. Although they were comfortable, although there was no future for them, although there was no reason for them to follow the voice, they followed the voice and stepped out into the wilderness. We heard that story and we wondered ourselves if we are being called and where we're being called to. And then we wondered if that's the voice that Nicodemus heard. Nicodemus was established. He was respected. He was learned. He knew all of the rules and regulations. He was a good Jew. He was a leader. And yet he had a feeling that there was something more, as if a voice was calling him. And so, in the dark, in the night, he came to Jesus. He came to Jesus wondering if there was more. And he heard Jesus tell him that he needed to be born from above, born anew, born again. And so together we wondered what that might mean, what that meant to Nicodemus, what that means to us in 2014 to be born again. Is it a bumper sticker? Is it a challenge? Is it a designation that divides one group from another? Instead, I think we decided or wondered if it didn't amount to Jesus inviting Nicodemus and us to be spiritual. Being born isn't enough. It's not a physical wholeness we're looking for. Knowledge isn't enough. Nicodemus had a lot of knowledge, but he still didn't know. What kind of invitation was this? We imagine it was an invitation to be spiritual. So how do we become spiritual? Join a cult, join a monastery, follow Leanne's meditation practices, and find the now. Well, looking at the story again, we heard of Jesus recalling Moses and the bronze snake raised on high. And the simple action when that snake was lifted up was for people to look up. And that's what we talked about today. That looking up and away from ourselves is the beginning of spirituality. Recognizing that we ourselves are not the center of the universe. The whole world does not rest on our shoulders. That's the beginning of spirituality. To look up and be amazed at the breadth of the sky. To see ourselves in the glory of creation. To recognize that it's not all about us, and yet we are part of it all. That's the beginning of spirituality. So that's what you perhaps missed if you weren't with us today. You missed that introduction to spirituality, but I'm sure you can find it yourself. Read John's Gospel. Wonder like Nicodemus. And like Nicodemus, look away from yourself. Imagine what it would be to be spiritual. Look with awe and wonder. And let that be part of what you do this Lent. Hope we get to see you next week.